Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you how to find the slope of a line given 2 points. What we're going to do is start with an example that you're already familiar with, which is finding the slope of a line from a graph. So in this picture you can see we have a line graphed with 2 points marked. The coordinates of this point here is 4 and -1. And the coordinates of this point over here is -1, -4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. All right, now, as we know, slope is rise over run. So when I'm finding the slope of this line, I need to know how much I went up or down and how much I went left or right. So in this case, I went up 3 and I went to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if we look at the coordinates of the points, you can notice that the difference between the y-coordinates, -1 and -4, is 3. That difference between them is 3, which tells you the change in the y. If you look at the x-coordinates of 4 and -1, the difference between 4 and -1 is 5. So we don't actually need the picture to find the slope. What we need to know is what's the difference in y and what's the difference in x. So in the next one, I'm going to show you both ways. So first, let's start by graphing the points. We have 3 and 5 is my first coordinate, and 6 and 10 is the next coordinate. Now, of course, between those points, there's a line that connects them. So let me draw that line right there. And we can use our method that we know already since we have a graph and count the number of squares to go up or down and the number of squares to go left or right. So up or down would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my rise is 5 and my run is 3. Now, let's pretend that we didn't have the graph to count squares. So I already know that the coordinate on top there is 6, 10. And the coordinate down here, lower, is, let me just pick another color here, 3, 5. Okay, so here's my point 3, 5, and the other point is 6, 10 right there. I picked the wrong green. Okay. Now, if I want to know the difference between two numbers, I subtract them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract my y's. I'm going to go 10 minus 5 and put that over the difference in my x's. So the difference in my x's would be 6 minus 3. Notice that my first point is with green colors. These first numbers all come from that point. And the yellow colors all come from the second point. That's important to keep that straight. You wouldn't want to do 10 minus 5 and then 3 minus 6. The first number has to be from the same point. Now when I do that out, 10 minus 5 is 5, 6 minus 3 is 3. Now I get the same slope as I did from counting. So what we're going to do actually here is we're going to develop a formula. I'm going to call my first point x1, y1. Oh, excuse me, I didn't want to call that one x1, y1, just for the sake of simplicity. I'm going to call this point right here x1 and y1. That just means x number 1 and y number 1. And I'm going to call this point up here x2 and y2. So if we look at what we did, we took y2 and we subtracted y1. See, y2 was 10 and y1 was 5. Now, underneath, for the run, we did x2, which is 6, and from that, we subtracted x1. And that will give us our rise over our run. Let's practice using this formula. So here I have, question number 4 here has only 2 points. So let me start by writing down my formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, if you look at your points there, we have 2 points. The first one is going to be my x1, y1. Let me just erase that here. So I'm actually just going to erase this. My first point is going to be my x1, y1. And my second point is going to be my x2, y2. All right, so y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's put in our numbers that we have. y2 is the y coordinate from my second point, so negative 10. And y1 is the y coordinate from my first point, minus 1. Notice that this has to be subtraction between them. Always subtraction. Right here, there's always going to be subtraction. So even if that second number is negative, you got to subtract there. Okay, over. Now underneath we put x2. In this case, my x2 is negative 11. So negative 11 minus, and I have negative 6 as my x1. So negative 6. Now, we all know that when you subtract a negative, that's really a plus. So our answer is negative 10 plus 1, so negative 9, over negative 11 plus 6, negative 5. What's a negative divided by a negative? That's a positive. So I'm going to put 9/5. Now you may be asking yourself, should we turn this into a mixed number? The answer is, if you want to, but it is kind of easier to leave it as a fraction like that for when you're graphing later on, so that you can easily see that this top number here is the rise and this bottom number here is the run. So that if I asked you to graph this, you would know you had to go 9 squares up and 5 squares over. All right, let's try the next one. So this first point is going to be my x1, y1, and the second point here is going to be my x2, y2. Okay, using my formula, I'm going to do y2, which is negative 1, this negative 1 right here, minus y1, 10, over x2, negative 1, minus x1, which is 2. Okay, negative 1 minus 10 is negative 11. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. I ended up with a negative over a negative again, which is just a positive, 11 over 3. So now I know that the slope of this line is 11 over 3, which is positive. One thing that I want you guys to know, actually, is that if you were doing all these calculations, and let's say you ended up with a slope of, I don't know, 12 over negative 9. Now, to simplify this slope, there's a couple things you'd want to do. First of all, you never want to leave a negative on the bottom, so I'm just going to put that on the top. Notice that 12 divided by negative 9 is the same as negative 12 divided by 9. It doesn't matter which of those numbers is negative, because a negative divided by a positive is always a negative. Another thing we can do is simplify. 3 goes into 12 and 3 goes into 9. So 3 goes into 12, I'm going to have to divide each of those by 3. So my new slope is -4 over 3. So you do have to simplify if you can at the end, but don't worry about mixed numbers. Anyway, I hope this helps. Watch it as many times as you need to be able to do your work.